Good morning, everyone. And this morning, I'm going to talk about something that I wrote a small post on Instagram and Facebook about today, and that is why your qualifications or training doesn't automatically equate to your purpose. So, like many of you, I spent many years exploring all sorts of healing modalities, different types of self-development, mental therapies, holistic therapies, and I trained to quite a high degree in quite a few of them. But actually, the reality was that there was only a small percent of what I trained in did I really use. Now, at the beginning of my career, quite quickly, I became a teacher. And one of the reasons was I was a natural teacher. Also, I had spent 10 years before actually being self-employed, training in many things, learning a lot of things. So I had a lot of knowledge and I was good at, I just wanted to share my knowledge. So compared to most people, I was actually teaching a lot of different modalities and a lot of different things, and certain organisations got me in to do different things. But I soon began to learn, and I suppose they began to learn where my power was, right? And there was many things that I trained in that I didn't end up using. And some things I just wasn't absolutely great at. Some things I wasn't actually physically fit to do. I just wasn't strong enough. There was also many things that didn't fit well, as in sit well with me. Something just didn't. Also, I had a huge advantage. I was someone that, because of my circumstances, I had tried many modalities. I'd worked with many different types of healers and therapists, and I was actually fortunate enough to work with so many people that were actually top in their field. And it's just because of the extreme of my health challenges, where certain times my parents were willing to do anything just to try and get me a normal life. And also there was times, obviously, then, I did my own thing, and I realised in my own path that because I was dealing with such complex issues, that most people, unless they were an expert or a specialist in certain areas, they were only scratching the surface, and it was a waste of money. And it took me a long time to learn that, but I did learn that. But one of the things that I learned along the way was many people and many healers and therapists were great at certain things, but they often tried to offer everything. And we all can do that, and I can do that a wee bit as well. But often what happened was they were not recognising where their true power was. Right. I'm going to give you some examples of what I've seen and what helped me look at the industry from a different, and I know some people don't like the word industry, but at the end of the day, we are an industry if we want to make a living out of it. But in the holistic and spiritual sector, there was quite a lot of things I saw. And I'll give you some examples of people I met who were true on purpose and maybe other people that weren't. So one of the first I went to a lot of body therapists before I was even about 20, because I had a back issue, I had different things, I had a bad fall, and different things. And I went to, your normal chiropractor, your osteopath, your body therapist. And then I went to a guy who became very well known in the UK for teaching craniosacral therapy. He was the main guy who run the Upledger Institute. And I remember going to him when I was staying in Perth, and I had some amazing experiences happen with him. And later I would go to him for craniosacral therapy to actually manipulate the structure of my face. My face was literally collapsing. I have a rare medical condition. And it was phenomenal what he'd done, and that's a whole new story. But he had found his purpose. He started off as an osteopath, and even though he did do that, he had an amazing gift in the craniosacral, and he was able to work it to such a degree that I remember at one point he did a certain procedure that can be dangerous if not done with great skill. And I've also asked a lot of craniosacral therapists to do that again, and none of them would do it on me because he had such skill. But basically, he put his hands in my mouth and he used, I'm sure it was like a penny or something, and he worked in rhythm with the cerebral fluid, the spinal fluid, to manipulate my jaw and my bones and to slightly reconstruct my nose, because my nose was literally as if it was collapsing and it was going to one side. And at the time I had the main reason I went was because I had been told I could lose my eye. And I'd went to him for a variety of reasons. And it was amazing what he'd done. And he would go on and he used, of course, the skills he learned, but he also was intuitive. I remember him saying something to me, and it gobsmacked me the first time I met him. He said a few things and got me to do a few things. And he was one of the guys who pushed me to study and teach guided visualization in a more safe and effective way, and how to use it in a powerful way. He was amazing. But I also, just about this time, and it probably I had actually was introduced to Tom just a few years before this, to be honest, when I work it out. And Tom was, he was classed as a Reiki healer. But I say that, and there's a reason why. Tom was a natural healer. He actually went and trained in Reiki after he realised he had healing hands and he could heal people. Now, he had the ability to heal people from most things that modern medicine wouldn't believe. And lots of people, and doctors even, would send their patients to him because he had, people called him the man with the golden hands or the miracle hands. Many people went to him with different things, cancer. He had great success with things like spinal issues, all sort of head injuries. I had a friend who smashed a hole pieces in her shoulder, and the surgeons were amazed. They said they couldn't do anything, it was so smashed. And then after a few months of getting healing him, they couldn't believe how well it healed. He had amazing results. Now, I went to him for many years, and he was the first person that introduced me to study Reiki. But many people went to him, no matter whose students and he taught, because he had a gift. Now, he had a partner at the time when I was first introduced to him. And I'll tell you something interesting, and and this was not being anything, trying to put her down, but you could never feel the power. She just didn't have the power and energy that he did. She was not a natural healer, so no matter what she was trained in, she just didn't have that, where people just didn't want to go to her. And she found that really challenging, because he had the gift and he was natural, and he didn't waste people's money. Also, he had a gift to be able to say to people, look, I'm not the person for you, or look, blah, blah, blah. Now, he helped me with some things, but he had to be honest with me. He told me there were certain things that I would need other help, and there was other things, and it was quite interesting. But he literally, no matter where he moved, and I remember at certain times in his life, there were certain things happened, and he ended up being in what you would call, he was working from a house. He took this old cottage, and believe me, it was really not nice. It was dirty. It was really untidy. But we're talking masses amount of people would queue up in their cars from all over the UK to come to Scotland to see this guy, because he was living his purpose, right? Now, along my journey, like myself, many therapists trained in a lot of modalities. It was very common then for modalities. Healers maybe a wee bit different. Many people who 30 years began studying Reiki, they would master Reiki, and that would be the main thing. But in the holistic sector, I was always interested in the more holistic. I was interested in things like kinesiology, herbalism, homeopathy. But a lot of those courses, for a variety of reasons, I couldn't do. I loved aromatherapy. It took me doing 3 different courses till I finally got my aromatherapy because of my own health conditions. But I went down. I spent a large part of my week studying as well as doing my work, and that was for a variety of reasons, but it was also for me to learn to help myself. And I trained in many disciplines, and some, when I left, I maybe did them 1-2 weeks, then realised this is not for me, or maybe I wasn't physically strong enough, or I realised this just wasn't my greatest skill. I also trained in things where I remember getting a merit for something that's got nothing to do with holistic therapies, and it was for a nail technician course, and I was given this merit. I was awful. I was the worst nail technician. I can honestly say that. I was never going to make a nail technician. And I remember the dishonesty. I was disappointed by the lecturer, because there was many people in that class who didn't get a merit. Now, she said she gave me a merit for determination and hard work. No matter how hard I worked, I was not a nail technician. And I realised, and one of the things, I couldn't use the normal products. I had to use organic, which were rubbish. And it always stuck with me, I felt, so I never ever used that qualification. But I also met people who done training with me, never attended, even 20% of the training. There were some people off and they get qualifications and they really hadn't done the work. And we see this sometimes, and it's, there's that lack of authenticity. But also what I noticed, because of this encouragement of keep adding to your tools, people weren't encouraged to master anything, and they weren't encouraged to find their own way and their path and their purpose, right? And find what they were really good at, right? And I meet so many of you're so gifted, but sometimes you're focusing on things just because a training skill told you this was the best modality, or this is how you do it, or this is what you should do. And people lose their purpose, or they invest so much money and so much time into something because of their financial or time investment, and they actually stop themselves from living their purpose. Now, I remember I was someone that studied many different types of stress management. I studied stress management at Open University. I studied it to do Caledonian University, and it was also linked with the NHS. It was an advanced stress management advisor, which was designed so that you could go into doctor surgeries and give advice. I trained in that, and I trained in all different types of courses in stress management. And it became my main area of field, right? And I've done lots of things. I trained in lots of disciplines of meditation. But I remember, because I was paying my insurance, I had to take 2 different types of insurance, which added up to £2,000, where most of my fellow therapists were only paying, some of them were only paying 30 at that time, £50, right? And there was me out £2,000, and I couldn't do full days. I couldn't do certain types of work. I could only work a maximum of normally 3 or 4 hours, right? And even that was pushing it, and I always had to rest. So I was limited how much work I could do. My insurance was expensive, and then to do with the types of modalities offered, I had to be part of certain bodies, particularly with stress management, to be for different reasons to get certain work. So my costs were tripling me. So what I'd done was I started to focus on doing more corporate. I was never, ever aligned with corporate, and particularly 22 years ago, right? 20 years ago. You're talking about, at that point, very outdated views in stress management, and not taking anything seriously. Well, very few took things seriously, but also a very hard-edged, more masculine environment. And there was me, only 4'9", very soft, and in many ways, I have to be honest, very fragile with my health, was trying to fit in to an industry that was not aligned. But on the other hand, what I couldn't see, and was so obvious at the time, I went down the community education and the charity sector. Now, I had to do a lot of loopholes to get in. I had to do lots of different extra courses, and I had to wait a couple of years till I'd done extra courses to get in. Once I was in, the work just kept flying. But I get so focused in the corporate that I was missing something very important, where my key strength was, and something it was so easy for me to do. It was very natural. It didn't take excess energy. It was so natural. And it wasn't actually really till I had to leave that work behind because of certain health challenges that I started to realise that that was more aligned to what the corporate and why it was so easy. And when I started getting all these messages from people who were still wanting me to work, but I couldn't do the work, it was at that point I started to see things completely different. Now, I had just for a couple of years near the end stopped doing that work. I had been doing a lot about archetype stuff and things, and I had been seeing certain things, but it didn't come back to me when that is. Your purpose is often the most natural, most powerful thing that you do, thing that you may actually take for granted, right? And even if it's a healing, as a technique or a healing modality you're using to achieve that, has to be, there has to be a specific outcome. So what is the outcome? So no matter what your purpose is, you have to have an outcome, and you have to be able to guarantee some sort of outcome, right? A lot of healers kind of go, but there has to be some sort of outcome because people are buying that outcome. Now, for example, when I talked about Tom, certain types of things he knew he couldn't cure everybody with cancer, but he had a high degree of really helping people with cancer who they said there was no hope. Now, there's a teacher I'm under at the moment, Ed Stranger, and I've been working with him for a couple of years. He literally he's got loads, and these are doctors, these are top people. We're talking about a lot of top people in the world. If you actually go and look at some of his videos or you go on his course, you'd be quite amazed at the amount of people that go to him who've had terminal cancer. He heals them in 2 and 3 weeks, or maybe a couple of months at the most. He has phenomenal results with certain things, right? But he's a different view than many healers, and I find it fascinating because that aligns with a lot of the experiences that I've had, why certain things happen. Now, I also worked with another guy called Christopher Macklin, and Christopher Macklin's greatest gift, even though he does different types of healing, he has a particular gift for helping people with HIV, Marshallans, Agent Orange, and late-stage lines. Anything that would be classed as a serious, and I have to watch what I say, but I'll split it in 2 words, bio and then weapon, right? Anything that's been, so his gift is actually, and he uses a certain type of something that has it's downloaded, but you can feel it's like Turian. It feels like Arcturian little angels working on you. It's very fine, and he's a specific modality. Now, I meet people every day who do all sorts of things, and they're trying to be a coach because they think they can make more money in that, but I'm not really a coach. Or they try and do something because they think it sounds good, the title sounds good, and it makes them again appear more money, appear as if they'll make more money as they're going to earn. It's nothing to do with that. It has to do with your most powerful gifts. And of course, sometimes to do certain work, you do need certain qualifications, you do need certain expertise or training. And it's like there's certain things, there's certain people I won't go to unless they've experienced certain things, because it's like sometimes they just don't understand and not coming from the right angle. But do not let the fact that you've spent maybe 2 or 3 years investing in a coach, and you've put all your savings in, and you've been taking 2 jobs to pay for it, right? Believe me, I've been there, to do a course and then to find out that that's not really your purpose. No matter what you learn in these courses, there's always take-home skills that you will use, but it doesn't mean it's going to be directly linked to what you do. Don't let, just because you've spent thousands of pounds in everything that you've got. I've met people who've spent all the retirement, their retirement, maybe money they put away on training, to find out that it wasn't right for them and it wasn't going to be part of their purpose. Don't hang on to it, because you'll hold on to resentment, you'll hold on to stagnant energy, and it stops you from fully owning your purpose. I learned to, when I now invest particularly in my training and all myself, I look at everything as spiritual self-growth. And there's so many of the courses, and I could say probably 90% of the courses that I've used it done. It's not that, yeah, it's gave me knowledge and it's helped me in my work because I have a better awareness of what people are doing, what they're teaching, and also where their level of understanding is in their consciousness is because I've done different things. But is it completely related? No. And if you're not willing to let go and surrender and just look at it as part of the path, you're going to struggle because you're carrying that weight behind you. And what you're doing is you're still hanging on to something. Believe me, it's easy to do. And, there's some areas I'm at the moment, I'm having to really say, right, come on, Ellen, you need to let go of some of this, right? So remember your purpose. Just because you have a qualification or a title in something does not mean that that is your purpose or your zone of genius. And it doesn't mean that that's where your purpose is in the future. Now, sometimes we can do something at certain stages of our business. And that was there for a reason, right? That happened because that was there to pivot us towards something else or to meet someone else or to end up somewhere else. I've had loads of things, the strangest experiences happened to me where even when I ended up housebound again with the seizures, lots of strange things happened to me, which ended up making me go down routes to study and study with certain types of teachers I would have never studied before, or I would never have opened up to, right? And it's so important that we do that. And one of the advantages that I have, because I've worked with so many healers and I've been privileged to work with different types of healers in a different capacity, I feel when someone's right. There's a lot of times now I feel when someone's right, and I can work with a lot of you that are amazing healers, but that doesn't mean just because I like you, you're someone that I would go to. And your clients and your students are the same. They can like you for one thing, but they might not go to you for something else, right? Because they feel they need something else. If you don't understand you and you don't know what your gifts are, right, and you don't know what your zone of strength and your genius is and your strengths are, you're going to struggle. And often even within that zone of genius, there'll be strengths and weaknesses. So who can you really help? And maybe as there an area that you're not really, it's not your strength, you have to understand that if you're going to be really clear in your business and you're going to be, because now more than ever, it's important to stand out and your message has to be clear because it's a very noisy world out there, particularly in the online market, and it's so busy, it's so distorted that your message has to be crystal clear. And one of the biggest things I still see is people selling the tool, not the solution. It's the solution that people need to see and who you exactly do it for, right? So think about who you definitely can do most with, and think and be honest with yourself and think, is there people that I might be hit or a miss here, I might not. Then you don't include that. You say that who this is for, and you can also say who it's not for. In my accredited relaxation training now, it's not a high-end course, as in, it's a lot of people that are in modalities and they want extra to do with stress management or they're new, right? And I make it very clear in that training who it's not for, who it is for and who it's not for, so that I'm not getting time wasters when I go on a chat, or I don't have students that come on and then they're not happy with the course, right? I make it very specific who it's for and who it's not for. I get lots of people asking me, can I not make it fast track? It's not for students that want fast track, because I don't want fast track students. So that's my choice. Now, it's just like a lot of things that I might say, it might rub you up the wrong way and you might not agree with me, and that's okay. We are all here for different reasons. We all have our own unique path, and we all have a unique message to our audience, because we all have different experiences and we see things from a different way. But we also, within that, have our own unique journey and our unique path. So remember, don't get caught up. And also, of course, this is not saying that there's some types of things that you need, that you really feels your purpose. And of course, you want to get the skills. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a I get really a wee bit peed off if I invest in a coach and then they turn out and they don't really have coaching skills. They've just tried to self-learn and think they're a coach, or the course has put a coaching. Or if I invest in someone and they put themselves out as an expert and then I really don't think they're an expert, I do get annoyed with that, right? But the reality is that your purpose is not something that should feel really hard. It should be something that feels easy. And I'm going to give you an example. So one of the parts, some of the things that I do, even though I'm a natural teacher and an educator, when I work with clients in this type of work, right, and this is more evolved as I've got older, it's very strange, but sometimes I pick up palettes of colours. I can feel the brand in the person's business. I can feel aspects about them, or even aspects of them they're holding back, they're not being honest about, or things that they're maybe projecting. So it's hard to explain, but in the energy field, sometimes I feel when they're trying to force something that they want to be someone rather than what really is authentic. I can also, as I say, see sometimes the colours when I'm working, and it tends to be when I'm working on a one-to-one, like a coach, and as I get to know the person, I'm feeling things about their energy. I'm getting the essence. I can only explain it as the essence of their energy. So that helps me. And and I never want to push that onto them, but it's about bringing out and helping them see them, so that you can get that on paper. Because people think by just showing up in video that people understand you and see your energy and all that, or just because you post positive posts, that doesn't give your energy. There is lots of things, there's things about, and even just the way you describe something may still not be how your audience interpret it. And that's why I use archetypes, I use spiritual archetypes, and I use them in a very different way than a lot of marketers, just because I'm a healer and I look at things a wee bit different. And I look at colour psychology and colour healing, and I look at the modalities of people in a different way, because sometimes marketers just put spiritual businesses all in the one umbrella. And you and I know that every one of us are different in the way that we view the world and the way that we view spirituality, the way we view all sorts of things that's going on at the moment, even, right? We all have different views and we all have different levels of awareness and awakening, different things and different levels of consciousness. And that has to come through in your marketing and your branding. So that's a natural gift because of my intuition and because of, I suppose some of it is natural in the way I'm a very visual person, I see things, but some of it has, yes, came through skill and doing things, and it's where I've ended up. But there's also aspects of what I do that's always been there from a young age, and there'll be things that you naturally are part of your purpose that have been there for your new age from a young age as well. And it's important to remember that. So just because it's like I got a lot of students who train up with me, and I do not force them. Of course, for a certain accreditation person, they have to pass things and do things a certain way, but I'm always about encouraging them when they go to do their business, to shape their business in a way that's going to work for them, of course, in a safe, effective practice, but that it's going to fulfill their purpose, right? Because if you push things too much a certain way, and a training school can do that sometimes, it stops the person actually really owning their purpose and what they're here to do. Okay? Maybe to see if there is anyone. I know in the morning there's not always M&As. Wait till we see. Now, what I would say is, if you are at the moment feeling stuck and you're not thinking, I don't really know how to step forward, I feel this or whatever, get in touch. I do at the moment, and I'm only doing it. I did say I was offering, the offer would be you'd have to pay by the 30th of September, but I'm doing an offer at the moment where you can get a one-to-one session with me for £111. I don't usually do one-to-one purpose sessions like that. It's just to get a wee bit more clarity. Obviously, in an hour, it's, some things need a wee bit more. But if you just need some to refine or some suggestions or help, reach out to me. I'm only offering this at the moment because my mum and my niece has been quite ill at the moment. So And I've been taking a lot less time out in work, and I can't commit to some of my normal coaching programs at the moment for a variety of reasons. But I'm offering some one-to-one sessions. So if this is something that you need some help with, get in touch, But, remember, you're unique, right? And it's always about your selling results. What results do you give? And remember, no matter what level you're at, if you're starting out, you'll be right for some people. When I first started out, certain people were right for me, and there's other people that weren't right for me, and that's part of it, right? Who I would go to, who I went to as a healer even 30 years ago is different to who I go to healing now, right? And we're all different in what our needs are. And it's so important that we understand who we're perfect for and who we're aligned with and what results we can give for our audience. And that's what it's all about. Okay, so have a wonderful day, everyone. Okay, bye-bye.